significantly below the guidelines.
All right, still with me, appellate attorney Matthew Barhoma. Matthew, I don't even know where to begin, but I'm going to start there with this. She never intended her actions. This wasn't a crime of intent. Why is she talking about intent? This was a crime that just required a reckless act. It was proven to this jury. They came down with a guilty verdict on the recklessness of the act. Why is she talking about intent?
Yeah, I think she's really flagging it down, to tell you the truth. I have no real answer for it. You're right. This is a crime all about recklessness. It's so reckless that it's criminal, and here the jury ruled that. Ultimately, I think that this is a judge that really looked at the facts, in and of itself. She's been very tame throughout the entire trial, and this is really the first real outburst of any kind of emotion we see from her from the bench. And so, I think she's really weighed in on this. She's really taken it into deep consideration, and ultimately she found what was fair and equitable for this court was a mere 24 months with good time served and credits and all the things that she could tally up. You're right. I think she's going to be walking free much earlier than the set date.
You know what's interesting? Yeah, they only served 2/3 out there, so we're talking about not a lot of time at all, just a little over a year. She went through all the factors, and I had no problem with her discussion of the factors in terms of, rehabilitation, incapacitation. Okay, I get it. This was not a defendant that fits into those categories. But then she got to the retribution part. And I think a lot of people were expecting that was where the value of black life was really where I think people were going to say, okay, this is a young black man whose life was taken. I think people would have been fine as long as she stayed in the guidelines. Throughout the trial, Matthew, she was clear. I'm not going to treat this trial any different than any other. And she was referring to that because this was, of course, a police officer on trial. She wanted to make sure things stayed on track. But yet, as we get to sentencing, we can clearly see the fact that this person was a police officer really caused her to treat this case differently, when I can see a whole nother judge saying, because you're a police officer, I'm going to treat it differently. And that's why your crime is even more egregious than normal.
Yeah, and honestly, throughout the duration of this entire trial, Michael, that was a common argument. People saw it on both sides of that coin. A lot of people looked at Kim Potter and said, she should be guilty. She had substantial training. She had years of experience. Others looked at those years of experience and said, look at how many years she hasn't had this kind of mistake. This is the first time she's had this kind of mistake. People quarrel over exactly this kind of thing in this case all the way through. And it's come down to being problematic even in sentencing.